The Denver Nuggets force a game 7 against the Thunder, and the hero wasn't Nikola Jokic. We'll break down how the Nuggets won in today's Locked On NBA game night. Let's go.
When that final buzzer rings, you know it's time for Locked On NBA game night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. It's the true NBA fans' one stop for all the action. Every game, every night. It's Locked On NBA game night. Tipping off now.
Welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA game night. Every game, every night. I forgot what the tagline was for a second there, and under 30 minutes or less. We better hit that timer, John.
Every time.
With one game here tonight.
Covering one game tonight.
We got our work cut out for us here, but what a game it was. 119-107 win for the Denver Nuggets over OKC, forcing game 7. We're going to break down how the Denver Nuggets did it and what OKC needs to do to win the series. But on Fridays, I'm your co-host, Jake Madison, at Nola Jake on Twitter, and the host of the Locked On Pelicans podcast.
And I'm John Karalis, at John_Karalis on Twitter, host of the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Thank you for making a Locked On NBA game night your first listen today and every day. We're here 7 days a week, breaking down every single game across the association and the playoffs here until an NBA champion is crowned. Please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube as well. John, that was a fun one. Oh, today's episode, by the way, is brought to you by Prize Picks. Download the app and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. I wasn't expecting this, to be perfectly honest with you.
Oh, really?
A 119-107 win.
What were you expecting?
I don't know. I thought after, I think it was game 4 when OKC kind of won that in a grittier fashion, that the series felt over at that point.
Yeah.
So I thought this was an OKC closeout game, and that's what we were going to be leading the show off with here. But Denver came through when it mattered.
The questions ahead of the season about OKC, and even as they were progressing through the regular season, marching as it was through the regular season, the questions were, what would they look like in the playoffs? Because they are still young. They are still not fully battle tested, a term that we love to use around the playoffs. And those questions are coming to pass here. We're still not seeing the absolute best from the Thunder. But on the Denver side, it shouldn't be surprising that Nikola Jokic has an awesome game, that Jamal Murray, even with all of the questions all season long and questions about his contract and all that this is the time of year. We say it every playoffs. This is the time of year. This is where Jamal Murray earns his money. That other guys would step up. And yeah, it's surprising that Julian Strawther was the guy. But also, there's always somebody. There's always somebody in an elimination game at home, one of these random guys that finds his way into a big performance to keep things alive.
Yeah, let's go over to Locked On Nuggets for their take, because I want to stay on the Nuggets for a little while here.
The Denver Nuggets beat the OKC Thunder 119-107 in just an absolutely must-have, must-win basketball game. And y'all, we are headed to the best words in the NBA playoffs, a game 7. Nikola Jokic today, a spectacular game. He continues to figure out the OKC Thunder defense. You get 29, 14, 8 assists, 2 steals, and a block from Nikola Jokic. But Jamal Murray, what a game. 25 points, 7 assists, and 8 rebounds for Jamal Murray. Christian Brown gives you 23 points and 11 rebounds. And Julian Strawther, 15 points off the bench, 3 of 4 from the three-point line in just an amazing, amazing basketball game. We're headed to a game 7. The MVP award has not been announced. We're going to get a game 7 between the number 1 and number 2 MVP finisher. And y'all, get your popcorn ready. Can't wait.
He hyped it up there, man. That was great from Swipa.
Yeah, put the NBA and NBC basketball music underneath that. Like that, let's go. Let's get that into a hype video. I don't think OKC thinks the game 7 are the 2 best words. I think they wanted this thing in game 6. But okay, Yeah.
Strawther. Let's go there because he was the hero. He was the turning point for this, right? The big question about Denver, it's felt like, has been, will other guys step up? We know Jokic is going to produce. We know Murray can be hit or miss at times, but he tends to show up when you need him too. But when they're playing 3 guys off the bench, and that's what they've been doing, an 8-man rotation this postseason and in this series, you need those other guys to just do something. And look, for the first 3 quarters, basically, they did nothing. Strawther finished with 15 points, but he didn't hit his first bucket till like a minute left in the third.
Yeah. I mean, there are openings in the OKC defense that can be exploited. And the thing with the Nuggets is, like, Christian Braun has his moments and was 3 of 6 from 3, but isn't like a knockdown guy. You need somebody to come in and live in those corners. The corner 3-pointers are going to be there against the Thunder, and Strawther, that's where he was hitting from. He was making the Thunder pay for not paying attention to him out there. And that, again, I think of like the Celtics with Luke Cornett, a home elimination game. You have that randomness, that somebody, because what happens, a coach is sitting there looking at things starting to slide away, and they go, what do we need? What do we need? We need somebody to hit a shot in the corner. Let's go with Strawther. He's a guy that can do that. And he did. Right. So if he didn't, then who knows who else they would have gone to. But they were trying to press buttons because they weren't taking full advantage of the openings there. So Strawther, to his credit, not playing a whole lot, steps in, hits the big shots.
Right. Like, look, it helps they were at home. The adage is, we can boil this down simply, right? Like, role players are going to play better at home than they're going to play on the road. So the fact that he stepped up, like, maybe isn't like the biggest surprise, I guess, when you're kind of looking at it, but they needed it. It was a close game. It was a 2-point game when he finally hit his first shot. Then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it felt like Denver had a double-digit lead going in, right around the beginning of the fourth quarter. And that kind of swung the game in such a massive way at that point in time. Are those guys going to be able, is a Strawther, is a Christian Braun going to step up on the road, I think, is now kind of the big question.
And look, OKC is a tough place to play. They have very loud atmosphere. Younger players like the Thunder tend to feed off the crowd a little bit. The younger players like Julian Strawther is a second-year guy. Those guys tend to be affected by the crowd a little bit more. So it's going to be who can keep their poise and who can stay in the moment and not give into the runs that the Thunder made. Like, at the end of this game, the Thunder started making their one final push. Denver had a bunch of turnovers. They found ways to stop that at home. That run at the end of the game had, improbable collapse written all over it. In OKC, maybe the Thunder complete that comeback, and the mistakes, the inability to inbound start to compound themselves, and the pressure of the moment where everything speeds up. The team that can slow down in that moment and be like, I don't care what's going on around me. I'm going to make this next play, and we're going to inbound. I'm going to get myself open. I'm going to find the guy who's open, and we're going to get down to the other end of the floor, and we're going to run some offense. If guys like Strawther and Braun and the other guys, or Russell Westbrook, who is very prone to these things, who is going back to OKC where his career
got some experience there
and has, right. And so he is prone to these big, wild, emotional swings. If there is a fourth quarter situation where somebody needs to make a play, does Russell Westbrook rise to the occasion in that moment? Or does he try to do too much because he wants to show the OKC fans something and he gets too caught up in things? So it's who can keep their heads. The Nuggets are the former champs, from a couple seasons ago. They have that experience in big moments. So I do trust them more, but it's if other guys around Jokic and Murray start to lose their heads, then there's only so much those guys can do.
No, Murray played well in this game. You got just enough from Michael Porter Jr. in this one as well. 10 points on 9 shot attempts. He hasn't been playing. He's clearly not healthy. That dude has like no lift or anything kind of going on with him. Aaron Gordon looked like he was holding his hamstring late in that game. That's a concern for me too.
Yeah, it's a big one, man. If he can't go, or if he's limited at all, I mean, he's been so great for them this entire series. A little more limited, but he still finished with 7 assists and 7 rebounds. If he's limited at all, or heaven forbid he can't go, then a lot changes, because they've leaned on him. He's been critical for Denver's success throughout most of these playoffs. If he's not 100% or able to go, then I will probably change. I would probably change my prediction to OKC.
Also, shout out Jamal Murray for playing through the illness he had kind of listed before the game that he might not play. Pretty impressive performance from him. Let's flip sides, go to OKC. That's coming up on the next side here on today's episode of Locked On NBA Game Night. Today's episode of Locked On NBA Game Nights brought to you by Prize Picks. Basketball season is at its peak, and with the playoffs heating up, now is the time to put your sports knowledge to work with Prize Picks, the top platform for daily fantasy sports. And Prize Picks makes it easy. You pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, and you're in. Whether it's points, rebounds, or assists, you've got a shot to win up to 2,000 times your entry. On Friday, I'm taking Jalen Brunson for more than 28 points and Jaylen Brown for more than 9 rebounds. The app takes less than 60 seconds, and I love how you can mix and match basketball players with other sports, baseball, esports even, in the same lineup. And when you hit your picks, the payout hits fast, sometimes in as little as 15 minutes. So download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. And thank you for making a Locked On NBA Game Night your first listen today and every day. We are here 7 days a week covering every single playoff game in the NBA. Please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and join over. I don't know how many people we got on YouTube, but it's a lot. You can join them there and join the conversation. For your second listen today, it is absolutely Locked On Nuggets and Locked On Thunder with a Game 7 coming up. Get the local analysis you can't get anywhere else. All right, John. Let's talk about the Oklahoma City Thunder here after this game. Let's go with this. You think they're worried?
I don't think they're worried. But there's, you want to try to close things out, obviously, when you have an opportunity to. I think they probably are happy to be going home for Game 7. But I'm sure somewhere in the front office, somebody, Sam Presti, somebody, one of those folks is like, oh boy, I hope that we can get I hope that role players play better at home thing really comes through, because they're going to need it to come through, especially Jalen Williams, who was 3 of 16 in this game. Awful. After 5 of 14 in the previous game, after 2 of 13 in the previous game there. He has not shot well at all in the past 3 games. He needs to get back to normal. If it may just come down to simply, if Jalen Williams gets back to playing a normal Jalen Williams game, OKC will run away with this, because Shai Gilgeous-Alexander will figure things out. He'll always figure out a way to score and make plays. Denver's guys will make, their main guys will make plays. If Jalen Williams can snap out of this funk, then OKC is fine. So if I'm worried about anything, it's him finding his stroke in time to put this thing away in Game 7.
Look, the stinker of a performance he had is probably the number one reason on their side of things why they lost. Let's go over to Locked On Thunder for their take.
Oklahoma City Thunder fall to the Denver Nuggets here in Game 6 in the Mile High City. OKC could not make shots. They turned it over too much, and Denver just thoroughly outplayed them. This was an execution game, a closeout game on the road, and this young Thunder team just did not have enough to do it. The supporting cast did not show up for OKC. It did for Denver. Role players typically play better at home. Now you have a Game 7 here in OKC on Sunday, and we'll see who shows up. It's a one-game sample size. Anything can happen. These two teams have been competitive. They've played close every single game of this series, sans Game 2, so everything's on the table for a Game 7, and we'll have it all on Locked On Thunder.
He used our analysis, right? Role players play better at home. I love it. We're consistent here on the Locked On Network.
It's going to be the most uttered phrase.
Totally. I mean,
on podcasts today.
Right? Like, I mean, if you think about it, look, it also makes a ton of sense here, right? They were on the road. They shot 11 for 40 from three. That's 27.5%. This is the team that was the sixth best three-point shooting team in the league this season, right? When I said, like, are they worried? Are they panicking? They're probably looking at this game being like, we couldn't hit anything. That won't keep up. We'll make those shots. We'll probably win this. And you won't have this like game-changing Strawther performance. And they've got to feel good about their chances going in. But they do look a little more mortal, I think, in the postseason, right? Getting to a Game 7 against a Nuggets team that I think a lot of people, not everyone, but a lot of people kind of wrote off going into the playoffs, right? Firing their head coach, firing the GM. The Thunder just going to Game 7 in the first place feels like a disappointment in this series.
Yeah, sure. And we can get into this in the next segment, because one of my big kind of, when I'm having conversations with people around these games, is the regular season lied to us. At least about
what does that mean? I'm curious. Stay tuned for more on Locked On NBA Game Night.
Yeah. So, but look, we're looking at a young team in OKC, again, prone to ups and downs. We're looking at a team that's an unproven shooting team in the playoffs. Lou Dort saved them in the last game and won that game for the Thunder, and comes in and shoots 2 of 7 from 3. And so inconsistent, up and down. Like you said, Jalen Williams 0 for 4 from 3. So there's been the question about OKC's ability to shoot and score in the playoffs. We're also looking at two teams with two of the more unique home court advantages, I think.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, Denver has their mile-high advantage. OKC has a very unique college-type atmosphere that is unlike most NBA cities. And so there's a reason why the home team role player thing becomes a talking point in all of this. So I just, the youth is the key here. And, you know, maybe ultimately whatever happens, it's something that the Thunder can build on. You need to go through these moments, and it would be kind of almost like an outlier to have a bunch of 23, 24-year-olds win a championship, even though they had this big dominant regular season. This is kind of almost like a rite of passage. So
yeah,
if they can come home and win this Game 7, I mean, you still have to go through Minnesota, and that's going to be a very difficult task as well. This is the battle testing. This is the battle, Game 7, that's going to either they're going to pass a test, or they're going to get some scars and learn valuable lessons for the next time they face this test. So it really is an interesting setup here. There's two very unique teams with diverse histories facing off.
But Denver, I think I saw this is the 7th Game 7 with Nikola Jokic in Denver, and it's the first one on the road, which is going to be really interesting too. So that's kind of a new realm and a new arena for them, I guess, literally. I thought the fourth quarter was pretty interesting because throughout this series so far, OKC has won the fourth quarters and looked really good, and Denver has not. And then you saw, at least to start the fourth, they eventually made a run, but they were really struggling there. And it kind of goes to what you said of these young guys and maybe the moment being a little bit too big, not having like some of the composure. You know, we could use all the cliches with it, I think, but it seemed to be very real. Now they made a push towards the end, so that was good to see that, you know, they got close, never able to get up over the hump. You heard Rylan from Locked On Thunder mention the turnovers. They only had 11 in this game, but in the fourth quarter, they had some really untimely ones, I thought, too.
And they are live ball turnovers, right? So
yeah, those are brutal.
They only turned it over 11 times, but 17 points off of those turnovers. The Nuggets turned it over 16 times for 17 points. So that tells you that the Thunder were giving the ball away, and it was leading to transition opportunities and trailing threes and things like that.
Particularly in the first half too, right? That's where 9 of those 11 came from, was in the first half of that game. And that's like where, cool, if you're on the road, build a bigger lead, because you have to imagine the home team is going to go on a run, and they could have used those points off turnovers back at that point in time.
Yeah. I'm very curious with this game. Like, how deep does OKC go off the bench here? Because they've been running 9-10 guys out there. You see some Isaiah Joe, you see Aaron Wiggins, you see Cason Wallace getting minutes, these or extended minutes. I wonder if in a game 7, if they'll go to more of a traditional playoff reduced lineup and just roll with your best guys. Just roll with that starting lineup. And maybe you throw Caruso in there, or 1 or 2 guys instead of 9 going down 9 deep. So
some of that I think had to do with Shea was in some foul trouble in the third quarter, right? You saw that kind of be a thing. Same for Hartenstein too, a little bit. So if they clean, it's just like you clean a few things up, right? Some of the fouling of that, like it's a pretty significant shift for the Thunder. And again, home team, that feels pretty big here.
There's going to be foul trouble in these games. You got some elite grifters in these games. You lay a finger on Nikola Jokic. He's throwing those arms up, and all of a sudden that contact. And look, you got to sell the contact. I'm not saying they weren't fouls. This isn't like prime James Harden, Trae Young level stuff. But it's, if you lay a hand, if there's any sort of contact, both Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, they know how to embellish that contact to draw the foul. There's going to be foul trouble somewhere in game 7.
It'll be interesting to see how it goes. Speaking of foul trouble and officiating here, John's got, I don't want to say a hot take, but we're going to get to that coming up here next in today's episode.
The regular season lied to us.
The regular season lied. That's coming up here next on Locked On NBA Game Night. Today's episode of Locked On NBA Game Night is brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing like the NBA playoffs, the intensity, the buzzer beaters, the fans losing their minds. It's the kind of atmosphere you've got to experience live, especially Game 7. And this year's matchups, look, the whole playoffs have been delivering. So if you want in, Game Time makes it fast and easy to get seats, even for the biggest playoff games. Prices on the app actually go down closer to tip-off with killer last-minute deals. You've got panoramic seat views and no surprise fees. Game Time's a total game changer. And look, maybe you're an NFL person. The schedule just dropped, and you better believe I'm already planning out my fall with the Saints schedule here and picking which games I want to go to. So Game Time makes scoring NFL tickets super easy. And with the Game Time guarantee, your tickets are 100% authentic, will arrive on time, and you will always get the best price with fees included. So what you see is what you pay. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And thank you for making a Locked On NBA Game Night your first listen today and every day. We are here 7 days a week covering everything you want to know about the association and all the biggest games in the playoffs here until an NBA champion is crowned. It's also draft season. Maybe your team, like me, isn't in the postseason anymore. We got Locked On NBA Big Board covering all the prospects, the combines going on, who's going up boards, who's going down, how are the measurements looking. Locked On NBA Big Board has you covered. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, John, let's hear why the regular season lied.
Jake Madison, the 3 best teams in the NBA this regular season were the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Cleveland Cavaliers, and the Boston Celtics. The Oklahoma City Thunder are in a game 7 in the semifinals, and potentially there's a great risk they may be eliminated. The Cleveland Cavaliers have already been eliminated, and the Boston Celtics are fighting for their lives, on the verge, could be eliminated on Friday night in New York. The entire regular season, all we said was, look, it's OKC, and just forget about everybody else. It's Cleveland and Boston in the Eastern Conference Finals. Just book it. Don't even bother playing the play. Just book it and simulate all the other stuff, and whatever. Okay, why were we so off? Why was everything so? I think it's because the officiating has radically changed. I think the officiating, the way the games are being called, so much more physical, which is fine with me, by the way. This is not a complaint. I'm fine. If this is how they want the game to be covered or played, then fine. But this is not regular season basketball. This is not what we saw in the regular season. This is a different style of basketball. And the things that made OKC, Boston, and Cleveland great they're not getting that same advantage from, how the game is called, how the game is played. So why are we having two separate entities? Why are we having a regular season that says, okay, we're going to call this a foul and that not a foul or whatever, and here's how we're going to play 82 games. And then once the playoffs start, where we were like, okay, let's determine who the best team really is, we go, okay, all the rules that you were just playing by, never mind. We're going to play by a different set of rules, and then we're going to determine who's the best. Well, so let's play real or fake, Jake.
Hold on. Ready? We still got it.
Is this real or fake? Just ask John and Jake.
I was waiting to hit that.
Real or fake? They should just call the regular season the same way they're calling the playoffs right now, and let's just play 82 games like this, and just that's what NBA basketball is.
Okay, I'm going to answer this in two ways. Okay, it's real, and there's a part that's fake. I actually agree with you that, yeah, it's real. Let's just play basketball this way. Complaining about officiating is like a rite of passage as an NBA fan. Every fan base does it. All the refs are biased against your teams. It's absolutely true. All 30 of y'all, all of that. Like I'm on board with that. And there shouldn't be a thing of like playoff basketball versus regular season basketball. It should just be basketball as you're making. Fully on board with that, right? Like, and I kind of like the playoffs, and you've seen some really good games. We've seen some really good series. Just do this and kind of call it a day. Let them be more physical. That's, I think, something that people want to actively see a little bit more. And this is going to get to my next point in the league right now. I disagree with you, and I'd call it fake of that's why Boston's potentially going to go home. That's why the Cavs have lost, and that's why the Thunder are in Game 7. The Thunder, I think, is arguably the one that maybe can prove that point. I think Boston, and this is reducing it down tremendously, you'll probably take issue with this, is where they are in this series because of the 3-point shooting over like 2 games when they were a good 3-point shooting team in the regular season. So it's different there, and they're just missing some shots. With the Cavaliers, it was their injuries made them look completely different than what they were before. And also, they couldn't shoot threes in that series for whatever reason. And I don't think those two things have much to do with the officiating. I think the closest point would be this OKC series with Denver.
I would argue that, well, yes, I have said multiple times that the Celtics lost game 1 and 2 against New York because they couldn't hit a shot.
Couldn't hit a three.
Yeah, right. And so they basically soiled themselves for 2 long stretches in fourth quarters, but also the physicality of the game has worn them down.
So that's a good point.
So I feel like that plays into Cleveland, and even the injuries, like the physical nature of the game has created bumps and bruises, injuries, sprains, strains. The later you get into NBA games now, these fourth quarters are slugfests. And again,
look at the Knicks in Detroit as an example of that.
yeah,
right?
That's not how the regular season went. And I will tell you that for the Knicks, there's a feeling for the Knicks of like, thank God for Detroit. I think somebody, I forget who said they were in the Knicks locker room, and one of the Knicks was like, after the game 1 or 2 win in Boston, they were like, thank God for Detroit, because that Detroit series was a big physical, just hitting each other with 2x4s, and the Knicks figured out like, oh God, this is how we can play. If it wasn't for that series, I'll put it this way: if the Celtics and Knicks played in the first round, I think it would have been a Celtics sweep, no problem. But because they went through that playoff style, completely different. Oh my God, we're just getting beat with baseball bats. What is going on here? And they figured out how to win. That allowed them to continue that style of play into the second round and present the Celtics with a completely different Knicks opponent than they've played during the regular season, where they dominated them for 4 games in the regular season. This Knicks team, for the most part, has been playing differently, super physical, playing much stronger defense. Now, some of that is Boston, and I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty, but it's Boston not playing fast enough. But it's still a different style of Knicks, a different approach from the Knicks, that the Celtics are like, who the hell are these guys? This isn't the soft Knicks team that we remember from the regular season. This is part of what I'm talking about. That, yes, the Celtics miss shots, but also they're facing a Knicks team that's like emboldened, that is able, and which is, again, not a complaint. Not a complaint. It is what it is. But I would rather have seen that during the regular season as well. So now you get into a playoff series and you know what you're going to face, right? And like,
that's the point, right? It's about, it's the line everyone says, we just want consistency when it comes to officiating. Call both teams the same. Like, basketball's basketball, right?
No, right.
Guards are officiated differently than bigs are, yet it's all contact. Why should it be differently, right?
Right. If everything stayed the same record-wise, and I was doing my preview podcast on Celtics Knicks, but the regular season was reminiscent of this playoffs, I wouldn't have said Celtics in 5. I would have said Celtics in 7, and I would have been prepared for a hard-fought battle. I'm sitting there looking at a regular season versus what this is, and like, this is 2 different things. So forget the specifics, and I'll wrap it up with this. Why does the NBA want this? Why does the NBA want 2 different styles of basketball? Because if you're a fan, this is when all the casual fans are starting to watch. If you're a new fan that's looking at this going like, oh, I like this. I like what I'm seeing. And then you go watch the regular season, you're like, where did the thing that I loved, that I just saw in the playoffs, where did that go? They're calling every ticky-tack foul here. So you're almost selling fans something that doesn't exist if you're watching the playoffs and falling in love with the NBA in the playoffs. Or if you're falling in love with it during the regular season, you're watching in the playoffs and you're like, this isn't fun. This isn't good. This isn't free flowing. This is like just beating the hell out of each other. So if you loved one, I don't know if you love the other. And I don't understand why the NBA wouldn't want, just make it a consistent thing so everybody can love that consistent thing.
No, look, I get it. Makes sense. But it's going to be different for Game 7, I'm sure, between the Thunder and Nuggets. So we'll see. That's
Everybody
Sunday
grab
night.
your surgical 2x4s and let's go.
Let's get ready. You're getting ready to go to New York for this Knicks Celtics game on Friday night. Fun never stops in the NBA. We're covering it all here on Locked On NBA Game Night. Every game, every night. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. On Fridays, I'm your co-host, Jake Madison, at Nola Jake on Twitter, and the host of Locked On Pelicans.
And I'm John Karalis, at John_Karalis on Twitter, and host of Locked On Celtics.
Enjoy Game 6. Enjoy Game 7. Maybe there will be another Game 7. We'll be back with y'all next week. See y'all next time.
When that
That's the wrong video. Let me hit the right video. Bye now.
Just a very OKC finish to that.